Hey, good morning, friends. Today is Wednesday, May the 21st, 2025, and the time now is 7:28 a.m. So, friends, I want to talk briefly about Mali, the West African country of Mali. And I want to talk or provide specific statement, okay, or comment about a specific event which recently happened in Mali, in the central region of Mali, which has to do with the execution of about 22 men by the Malian military or army force. Now, friends, this topic basically does have both political, geopolitical, and domestic implication for Mali. So, friends, the story goes that members of the Malian army forces or the Malian armed forces, a specific unit or so, which is based in a central region of the country, went to a market, into a cattle market, where they arrested about 22 men. And it is said that the 22 men that were arrested are very famous or popular, well known in the area. And this is a reality that is, okay, that can be experienced throughout Africa, where many people can be very much renowned in a location, in a village, in a town because of their deeds or because of whatever tradition says. So it is said that the soldiers went into the cattle market and they arrested 22 men and took them away. Now, these 22 men were blindfolded and they were loaded into boats, and the boats crossed the Niger River. Across the Niger River into a location, these men, blindfolded, were basically executed. It is said that the soldiers cut their throats and killed them and basically dumped them or throw them into a mass grave. However, friends, of these 22 men who were taken away by the soldiers to be executed across from the Niger River, it is said that one of them managed to escape. And this one who escaped basically stated that at some point the blindfold basically didn't work. Like he could see what was happening. When the soldiers took them across the river, they basically set them down, and the soldiers were taking them away two by two to the mass grave and executed. So, friends, according to the one man who escaped, whenever the soldiers took two guys away, two of the men away, he basically would hear loud, agonizing scream or shout or yelling coming from the men who were taken away. And for him, his blindfold wasn't properly put together so he could see what was happening. And this basically began to send, okay, fear into him and begin to trigger fight or flight. In this case, flight. So at some point, when two of the men were taken away, he noticed the soldiers were coming back. When the soldiers were coming back for him, he ran away. He ran away as fast as he could, and they shot at him, okay, about three times. However, they missed, and he basically hid somewhere. He did not move until the soldiers basically got back onto the boat after executing the other man, the 21 man, and the soldiers left. That's when he got out of his hiding place. He let the town know. He blew the alarm. And after that, many people, okay, women most especially, went to the army base where they were protesting. They've been protesting. Now, this is a very sad and interesting event for Mali and for Africa. And I do believe that Africa has to pay attention. And in this case, the situation is hot in the Sahel region. Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, these countries have been fighting the same enemy in the Sahel region. It is said that since 2011 or so, Mali has been fighting jihadists, quote unquote Islamic terrorists. Now, the situation is very much interesting to the point where even Human Rights Watch is calling for an independent investigation into the matter. The fact that 22 civilians were executed randomly at will by members of the military. Many are calling that the members of the military who did the deeds must be suspended or must be prosecuted. Now, the region where this took place, the central region, okay, location in the country, in Mali, is said to be heavily inhabited by members of the Fulani tribe. Now, I've been around Fulani people. Fulani people are hardworking people. They are traders. They trade in whatever. Now, in this region of Mali, they are known as herders and they do other things. But when I was young in Africa, the Fulani are heavily, okay, or they were heavily engaged or involved in shopkeeping. They always own shop. I know Africa has changed tremendously. If you go to Africa right now, people in every country owns whatever kind of shop you can think of. In fact, Africans now are going to China, India to basically buy goods and ship to Africa and sell them. When I was young, I was in Africa. It was the Indians and the Koreans and the Chinese who were bringing their things to Africa to sell. So Africans would go to their store to buy the dry goods and then sell it. But now Africans themselves are traveling to Asia or wherever and buy the materials or whatever they need, ship to Africa and sell. So when I was young, if you see a shop, if it wasn't owned by an Indian man, a Chinese man, or a Korean man, it was owned by a Fulani person. So the Fulanis were heavily engaged or involved in shopkeeping. All the Fulani families that I came across, they own shop. Perhaps the shops were never as big and rich as the ones owned by the Chinese and the Indians and the Koreans, but the Fulanis always own shop. So they are nice people, decent, amazing people, and they are heavily Muslim. Fulanis are Muslim. So, friends, it is said that the region in Mali in which the 22 men were taken away blindfolded and shipped in boat across the Niger River and executed, of which one of them managed to escape and he blew the alarm. This region is heavily inhabited by the Fulani people. And it is said that in this region, Al Qaeda or Islamic fundamentalist or terrorist groups related or connected to Al Qaeda or the Islamic State had been operating, and that these groups have heavily recruited from the Fulani people. Now, this could be to a greater or lesser extent, but it is an interesting thing where, and sad thing for Mali and for the Fulani people, the families that lost members, okay, as a result of what members of the army did. But it is also a sad thing for Africa, and it is a reality that I hope that Africa, and most especially in this case, the Sahel states of Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali need to learn from. And I do believe and hope that people such as Ibrahim Traore, who is now probably the most talked about African leader within Africa and throughout the African diaspora, must pay attention to. This is because as much as Traore's revolution is gaining momentum, the West could come at Traore by setting up things like this, where the Burkina Faso military could overreact and they could get bad name. And this will begin to be a stain on the consciousness of Africans and Africans in the diaspora for or against Traore. And this is because whenever civilians are executed or killed, especially in this manner, as described in the incident in Mali, people, even those who may have supported the military or the authorities, will begin to turn against the military or the authorities. So it is interesting. So I hope the Burkina Faso military and Ibrahim Traore pay close attention and that he order his men, his army, to be respectful, to not overreact, especially when something happened, and to treat the people, the civilians, kindly, with dignity and carefully, because anything could happen. Now, the situation in the Sahel region has been going on for over a decade now. The situation in Mali is said to have been occurring for about more than a decade now. at least since 2011. As much as groups such as Human Rights Watch and others are calling for the Malian military to launch an investigation or calling for an independent investigation with the allegation that the truth will not come out as a result of the Malian military doing its own internal investigation. As much as that should be happening and is interesting and is important, one thing that is not being talked about is the fact that the situation in Mali and in the Sahel region came about as a result of what the United States, France, and the West did. When they attacked Gaddafi, Libya, killed Gaddafi, and Libya, as much as the United States and the West were trying to, quote unquote, take democracy to Libya, which has been their slogan, Libya is permanently destroyed. There isn't any form of democracy in Libya, and Libya is said to be worse now than it was. So, friends, for Mali, perhaps the military government and the phrase junta is being used strongly in the West against them. Yes, a junta is a group of military that take over a country, whether through coup or whatever, a military government. But the way the word junta, the phrase is used by the West, it has some form of negative connotation. It is much more derogatory, at least it sounds to me, than it is respectful. Whether you approve of the government in Mali or not, whether they are military government or not, whether they are friendly to the West or not, as of now, this government is the government that Mali has. So the government must and should be respected. But the situation in Mali is a sad situation for the civilians. And the government, military government, must want to make sure that it never happens again. Because something such as this could lead people within Mali and outside of Mali to begin to turn against the government, which in this case will not look good for Mali, for the Sahel region, and for Africa. Because as much as Burkina Faso and Ibrahim Traore are getting the attention, the revolution in Africa right now is centered in the Sahel region, the greater Sahel region, in the specific countries of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. And the revolution has to work in this region. Civilians within these countries, within this region, must be happy, must be pleased by their government, so that the rest of Africa can be happy, can be pleased by this government, and the entire African diaspora can be happy and be pleased by these governments so that the revolution can continue. Now, friends, if you ask me, I'm going to say yes, it is a good thing that the military should launch its investigation, its internal investigation, but I also do believe that there should be outside investigation, bipartisan group, basically groups that are not favorable to the military and to the West. Because usually when Western institutions call for investigation, it is often their own people that come to do the investigation, and then we get falsified summary. We get falsified conclusion, which basically work in the favor of the West to accomplish or achieve the Western agenda of whatever regime change or whatsoever the West wants to do. Now, friends, please tell me what you think, and I really want to know what you think. But, friends, I'm going to end here. I want to thank you for being a member of the Echoing Voice community, but most especially and most importantly, or most important, I want to thank you a lot, friends, for watching the Echoing Voice. Peace, my friends. Peace.